We had a slight chance in this race in Spain. Didn't get much out of it.
Because Lando couldn't survive the first turn of lap 1 without someone passing him.
Which, by the way, I watched it on replay, but I didn't get any spoilers, so I watched it as if it was live. I hate to say this for you, Sean, but as the first turn happened and Max got out in front of Lando, I just went, there he is, the choke artist himself, blowing it into turn 1 again.
And speaking of getting the party started.
For the victory lap, though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I stress overcome, what for? Train under trees, please pardon my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands, and stormy shore seasons in the year, yeah. Switch gears, we keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. And today, we break through. 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 And today, we break through.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Gridiron Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. We're the only podcast in the world that we know of, at least, that talks about our two loves exclusively, that being Formula One and football, hence grid and the iron kind of coming together, you know, gridiron being football, grid being racing. Okay, I'm getting way too ahead of myself here. But welcome back if you're a long-time listener. We appreciate you. Haven't done a show in quite some time, but this is episode 62 of the Gridiron Podcast. As always, I'll be your MC of tonight's events, myself being Sean Barie, and joining me as always, our bald behemoth holding down the fort in the land, flexing on the people. It's Nick Shook, NFL.com talent writer. Katie Caldwell not joining us this week, but she will be back next week when we preview her home country's Grand Prix, that being the Canadian Grand Prix. So she'll be back then. Nick, got a lot to talk about tonight, not really in the NFL world, but we do have a lot to talk about in the Formula One world because we are coming off of the back-to-back of a triple header.
You a little Chris Berman on me there? You little back. Sean, I also, you know, because we do this live and we cut this out in post, you're off of your laptop microphone right now.
Vamp for me for a second, Nick.
I'll vamp for you. So we're coming off of a triple header in the world of F1. It began in Imola. It continued with the parade that is known as the Monaco Grand Prix, where the glitz and glamour outweigh the actual racing action. And it finished with one of the most dramatic Spanish Grand Prix I think we've seen in multiple years, maybe not for the best reasons, but for some spicy reasons that we're definitely going to get into as soon as Sean actually figures out his microphone. Let's see if he's figured it out by now. Oh wait, hold on. Plug in your snowball. Yeah, it's showing that you're on your webcam right now.
Does it sound that bad?
No, it just sounds kind of like you're in a goldfish bowl.
Let me exit out real quick.
We'll do it live. No, this is not a one-man band of a show. This is the Gridiron Podcast, episode 72. The Ryan Tucker episode, an old Browns tackle. A lot of people have worn 72. Sean's back now. Let's see if he's any better.
I am back now. 72 also, Patrick Hornquist of the Pittsburgh Penguins scored the game-winning goal, series-winning goal for the 2017 Stanley Cup Final. Gave the Penguins
I feel like
their
I should
fifth
know
cup.
more 72s than I do. It's an offensive tackle number, typically, and the number now escapes me. But I think that one will do, Sean. Luckily, you sound normal again.
Thank you.
So
welcome, everyone, to
Here we go.
episode 72. As Nick said, if you'd like to get in contact with us, shout us out. You can find us on Instagram at GridironPod. That is on Instagram at GridironPod. And then you can email us as well because, you know, sometimes we're old-fashioned and, you know, we like the snail mail that is electronic mail. And you can find us via email at thegridironpodcast3. That is thegridironpodcast3 at gmail.com.
Dan Deerdorf was a Hall of Famer who wore 72. This is why I'm not remembering him. Not a lot of notable names.
So many times the joke is made that you could just get guys at a bar and they would just name random people, random athletes for 3 straight hours. We could do that. It's just we kind of lose it when we think about numbers. You know what I mean?
That's why I went with Ryan Tucker, former Browns right tackle.
Yeah. 72, man.
Not notable.
What are we going to do? Let's get into some F1 talk because we're coming off, like I said, the back-to-back of a triple header. I think it's the second triple header of the F1 season. We started off in Italy for the Benicio del Toro Gran Primo, Emilia Romagna Babadabupi Gran Primo. Max Verstappen won that one. Brought to you by Papa John's. Brought to you by Hawaiian Pizza.
Better pizza.
Max Verstappen took home his second win of the season in Emilia Romagna, and then we had Monaco, the Monaco Granddaddy Prix of them all. Lando taking home his second win of the season, and then you had the most recent in the trifecta of races, that being back in Spain, and it was Oscar Piastri's day from pole to finish. Let's start with the Spanish Grand Prix, Nick, because Oscar Piastri grabs his 5th win of the season. He has 3 more wins than his teammate Lando Norris, yet those two are atop the leaderboard right now, and only separated by 10 points.
Yeah, because the races that Lando won tended to be bad days for Oscar, whereas Oscar, I mean, the championship will ultimately decide this, Sean, but not to jump ahead, I feel as if Oscar has justified what me and Katie brought to the table a month plus ago, which is that he is their better driver. He has more wins to his name. Strategy has favored him at times when he's ahead, which is understandable because they're playing to the strength of their team. But he put together perhaps his best race of his career, if not this season, with that performance in Spain. A race in which, you know, he won by 2.4 seconds. And he was a little bit more dominant than that. But at the same time, he was under threat a few times because McLaren's strategy got a little dicey, just a little dicey. If not for the chaos after the safety car within the final 10 laps, maybe we would have seen a photo finish. Instead, he finishes off a wire-to-wire victory in which he was only behind briefly because of pit strategies, and I think Max got around him one time early. Max definitely got ahead of Lando.
Yeah.
And then Oscar made up the difference.
Well, I think it's also kind of tricky to say that he was under threat from Lando you're talking about.
I think that we were setting up for, if not for the safety car, I think we were setting up for a very interesting, if not fascinating, final 10 laps because of where McLaren's strategy had sent him to the pits and the possibility that Max would stay out on his mediums for the rest of the race, which we'll never know.
True.
Because Max pit for hards because it was the only tire they had left. But I felt like he could have extended those tires to the end and made it interesting at least.
No, I think you're right. And even Max said afterwards, and we'll talk about this in a second, they had an exciting strategy. We will never know. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? How many tires does it take for Max Verstappen to beat Oscar Piastri? The world may never know. But I think Oscar, he was managing his tires well also. So it wasn't kind of like he was under this constant threat, because even when Lando got close to him at times, you could see he just pulled ahead. Like, he was managing his race and doing it like Max Verstappen, like Lewis Hamilton would. He looks like a seasoned vet. And I agree with you and Katie. You called it first, but I, as a Lando fan, have to kind of stick up for my guy. But yeah, Oscar is the more impressive driver, the more well-rounded driver. The one thing we kept saying about Lando is, well, he's quicker over one lap. And in Monaco, he was, because Lando Norris got the win from pole, set a lap record, a track record for that pole that he earned on qualifying on Saturday, and then, you know, just carries it to a race win, as you do in Monaco. But oddly enough, next week when we're all thinking, okay, Lando's back, he's gonna start to put it together, we have the biggest gap from pole to second place we've seen all year, over 0.2 of a second, in which Oscar Piastri was 0.2 ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. We can't even say that Lando is quicker over one lap anymore, because on any given week he might not be.
Yeah, because he just proved it in that race itself. Look, this is a guy who is, like you said, a seasoned veteran, wise beyond his years. The talent is clearly there, and I can't help but think, what would have happened if Alpine hadn't completely botched their situation with him, where they committed him to drive for them in the following season without asking him first, which then led him to protest publicly via social media and ultimately force his way out. And oh, there's McLaren. Oh, sure, we'll take you. Yeah, we'll happily have you. Now he's your better driver and he's the championship leader. What a way, you know, it's like the butterfly effect in F1. The way the cards, I don't know, the way things unfolded in F1, it's made for a fascinating potential first championship pursuit for him.
I think I saw a statistic, and I don't want to be wrong, but I think this was it. Oscar's points total this year is more than Alpine has scored in the 3 years that he is supposed to be driving for them.
Yep.
He's outscored them in this season, 9 races in, over 2.5 seasons that he would have been driving for Alpine.
And
he
how
made
would
the
we
right
be talking
decision.
about him? How would we be talking about him right now if he was stuck in that car? Like, this is why F1's crazy, because it's like football and quarterbacks. It's all about situation. Not only is he a great driver, but he's also in the fastest car in the grid.
We've got to give props to Mark Webber for steering him away from Alpine and steering him right into the arms of Zach Brown and McLaren. I mean, it wasn't a sure shot that McLaren was going to be this good 2 years ago. His first race, they were the slowest car on the grid, and now they are by far the fastest. So, I mean, yeah, props to Mark Webber. At the same time, we haven't seen Lando and Oscar go toe-to-toe this season, right? We haven't seen that kind of Mark Webber versus Sebastian Vettel, that kind of Mercedes 2016 vibes. You know, we haven't seen this happen. Are we going to? It's got to happen at some
I felt like
point.
we had a slight chance in this race in Spain. Didn't get much out of it.
Because Lando couldn't survive the first turn of lap 1 without someone passing him.
Which, by the way, I watched it on replay, but I didn't get any spoilers, so I watched it as if it was live. I hate to say this for you, Sean, but as the first turn happened and Max got out in front of Lando, I just went, there he is, the choke artist himself, blowing it into turn 1 again.
Lap 1, turn 1, I mean, it's just like, dude, you can't shake this narrative anymore. It is part of who you are. You really need to buck this trend. 13 laps later, though, Lando would chase down Max Verstappen, who, you know what, let's talk about Max, Nick.
Let's do it. Let's get to the
please,
juiciest storyline from the weekend.
You are our resident Red Bull fan, so I ask you, what the hell, man? What the hell?
Got myself a little Red Bull car right here. Also, got myself a little Oscar Piastri car. What do you know?
You took those out of the cases, too.
I did. I put them on the shelf. They're all in the back.
For those that didn't watch the race, Max Verstappen, towards the end of the race, after the safety car, was given hard tires. They were kind of cold coming off. So during the restart, he fishtails, gets passed by Charles Leclerc on the restart, and they kind of bang wheels a little bit. And at the moment, I'm like, ooh, they touched. I didn't think anything of it. It was kind of just a racing incident. And then what was it, a lap or two later, George Russell's coming to pass Max, and Max feels like he's forced off by George. And so he takes the escape road and passes George while off track, which that's a no-no. And his team tells him to give the place back. Team tells Max to give the place back. And he's arguing. He says no. And they say, well, those are the rules. So Max slows down and looks like he's going to give the place back. But then he doesn't. He just runs his car directly into George. What the hell, man?
Yes, a classic case of Max Verstappen letting his emotions get the best of him in a high-pressure moment in which he's clearly frustrated. But, Sean, we can't properly recap this without the context around it, which is that Max was having a hell of a race, all things considered. A car that was lacking in pace when compared to McLaren, yet he was still outside threatening to get it. He was going to get on the podium, and he was threatening to maybe end up in P and maybe, just maybe, push Oscar. I don't think that was going to happen, but he at least had an outside shot of it because of strategy if he'd taken those tires at the end like I talked about. But then Kimi Antonelli, bad luck strikes him. He ends up off the track. His car just basically fails him, and it prompts a safety car. And Max was on a wild strategy that I questioned after the first stop, which is they basically used up his mediums and didn't have anything left but hards. And he's basically riding out the medium, thinking, all right, I can do this. I can get to the end. Or at least there was an outside shot that I was sitting there thinking, I think he's going to take these to the end. And the safety car comes. And at that point, I thought Max could stay out, gain track position, get smoked by McLaren's on fresh tires, but still hold on to a podium spot and at least make it interesting. Instead, Red Bull takes the free pit stop, calls him in where they have to put hards on because it's the only fresh tire they have left. And as soon as Max pits, he's asking, why are we doing this? And then he looks down at the tire and he goes, what are these? And they go, those are the hard tires, Max. And he goes, why? Like, he was just like, why are you putting me on the obvious worst tire for the weekend? Nobody was running hards all weekend because they were a terrible tire for the track.
I get it. He was frustrated. I would be frustrated too. His team, choked.
Well, here's the thing, though, Sean. As soon as
you can't just go running your car into someone else. You can't just go running your car into someone else. Of course,
but as soon as he's on the hards, it's clear that this is a terrible tire, and all the work that he's done throughout this race, which I thought he's handled very well, all things considered, just evaporates within 2 laps. He gets passed once, then George did force him off. And first he gets bumped by Leclerc and he gets pissed off about that. But that's going to happen when you're side by side. It is what it is. Leclerc's on a better tire too. Then he gets forced off by George, and at that point, he's like, George has no business getting around me right now, giving the race that I've raced. And he takes the exit road to get back on track and feels as though he was unfairly forced off. So when he's told to give the position up, he's pissed off, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that, and he's arguing with them. So then when he goes to give the position up, that's when his emotions take over. So while it's not the mature decision, it's not the right decision, in the moment, I understood why he reacted that way, because he's Max Verstappen.
Nick, he slowed down.
Yes.
He slowed his car down as to allow George to pass him. And while George was passing him, ran his car into George Russell.
Expertly wheel to wheel, though, by the way. Let's not forget that.
I'm not talking about, his emotions got the best of him. Clearly, what I'm talking about is a 4-time world champion being such a crybaby about it all that he lulls his opponent into a sense of security and then said, psych, and just rams his car into him. It is Bush League.
It was totally Bush League. I don't disagree with that, but I think the context is important here.
At the end of the day, he receives a 10-second penalty, which drops him from P5 to P10, so he loses a bunch of points, comes home with only one single point. He now trails Oscar by 49 points in the World Drivers' Championship. We have seen him make up deficits like that before, although when he was in the best car on the grid, which he is not. But you just lose a lot of respect, okay? Because this is supposed to be one of the best. And this is a guy who, rightly or wrongly, and most people, myself included, will say rightly, has developed a reputation over the past couple of years of running his opponents off track. He gets his elbows out a lot, and some of it's clean racing, and some of it is, what were you doing? Let's think about Mexico last year, where Lando tried twice to pass Max, and both times he literally just refused to turn his car and ran them both off the track, in which he got 2 consecutive 10-second penalties.
Austria, too. Let's not forget Austria.
I wasn't going to bring up Austria because I thought you were going to rebut that one, but I will accept that. Thank you. I will accept that. But Mexico was the more egregious one. So he gets slapped with a 10-second penalty this time around. I think it should have been more, because if we look back to Baku and whatever year that was when Sebastian Vettel comes up alongside Lewis Hamilton in P1 and bangs wheels with him under a safety car, Seb was given a drive-through penalty. Okay? Max Verstappen lulled his opponent into a sense of security and then pounced. That is inexcusable. I'm fine if you want to bang wheels. I'm fine if you want to. But, you can't be like, all right, I'm going to let him pass me. Boom. Nope. Can't do that. That is Bush League as hell.
I agree. And that's why I call it Bush League. And I, again, not defending him. I'm just adding the context because I think it's important. No, I'm adding the context so that you understand the scenario around it as to understand why it happened. But the reason he didn't get a drive-through penalty is it happened so late in the race it wouldn't have mattered. They didn't give the penalty till after the race. And he actually finished P5, like you said.
And what was the kicker,
and then they docked the 10 seconds.
What was the kicker?
3 penalty points as well.
What was the kicker of it all, Nick, is that even after the race, when they levied the penalty, the 10-second penalty, the stewards made sure to include a line that they were not going to make Max give the place back anyway, because they deemed that he was forced off by George Russell and had to take the access road.
Therein lies my point.
So it's
because I thought he was forced off.
He was, but it's even more ironic that they're like, we weren't going to do anything about George forcing you off, but we're going to do something about you, telling him, yeah, go ahead and pass me, and then just bang wheels. No. That ain't happening. Yeah. That is unbecoming of a world drivers champion.
I don't know if he would have held on to the P4 anyway, because that's how bad that tire was.
Yeah, that tire was terrible. The soft tire was the way to go this weekend.
Dude, on the freaking restart, he almost spun his car out. The fact that he kept the car on the track on the restart was a miracle. He went damn near 90 degrees and was able to correct in time to stay in the race.
Let's talk about the second Red Bull driver, Yuki Tsunoda, because he qualified dead last this weekend. The last time we saw Red Bull qualify dead last, that was the last time we saw that Red Bull driver in a Red Bull, being Liam Lawson after China. So, is the Grim Reaper coming for young Yuki?
Well, if it was Helmut Marko's decision, he never would have had the seat to begin with, but
Isaac Hadjar's right there, and I pray to every racing god there is, they do not put that sweet boy in the Red Bull.
Yeah, because he's having a hell of a year for Racing Bulls.
He's like
a hell of a year.
He's in like P7. And remember, this was the guy that crashed and spun out on the first formation lap of his rookie season. First race, first formation lap, spins out, cries on international TV, and his boss, Helmut Marko, basically calls him a crybaby about it. And he has responded by just putting together a hell of a further 8 races.
I'm not going to lie, it's becoming difficult to be a Red Bull fan when Helmut Marko is running the show because, or at least has Christian Horner's ear, because they are kind of like the Republican Party in some ways, in which that they just don't give a shit about the emotions and well-being of those who work for them. Like, they're just, it's the cruelty that matters to them sometimes. So I hope that he doesn't get put in that seat either, because I think he'll suffer the same fate, because that car it's almost not the same car. In Imola, it wasn't even the same car as the one that Max was driving. You're already operating with a hand tied behind your back. I think just keep him in the Racing Bull and let him continue to prove himself, because he's having a hell of a year. And we've seen what it's done to Yuki Tsunoda, who's been an afterthought for most of this year. Ultimately, we owe Checo Perez an apology, which we already knew.
Checo, we're sorry.
I'm sorry.
Can't wait to see you in Cadillac next year, maybe. I do know that Isaac Hadjar is good friends with Pierre Gasly. Of course, they're countrymen. They were together watching the Champions League final on Saturday night. They're both PSG fans, so I hope Pierre took him aside and said, "No, don't do it, no." And I hope Alex Albon was, in his phone going, "Don't do it, man. It's not worth it. Don't do it.
It's not worth it.
Don't do it, man.
Juice isn't worth the squeeze, man.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it."
It's career suicide. It's career suicide.
But anyway, one last note from the Spanish Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg.
Oh, we've come so far.
Nico Hulkenberg.
Hulking back. Look at him. He's coming in to replace drivers during COVID, to actually putting together a hell of a race for a bad team. Nick, I mean, my God.
He was the closest he has ever been to a podium.
Yeah.
3 seconds away from his first ever podium, which, if you did not know, Nico Hulkenberg, he's been racing in Formula One for over a decade now, and he has officially set the record for most races without a podium. It's a record he breaks every single time he goes out onto the track. So it's kind of a running joke, but he's even said, this is Operation Podium. This is why I'm here. I just want the dang podium. And he was 3 seconds away from one. Starts P15, finishes P6, and then with Max's penalty, finishes P5. And wouldn't you know it, Sauber looked a little punchy this week. They brought some upgrades, and I got to give, Nico Hulkenberg a lot of credit. A little bit of luck, but, a lot of patience and just a good result. And at the end of the day, they were joking, he had he was knocked out in Q1, finished, started P15, and he had so many sets of soft tires ready to go. So he's like, yeah, that's the secret. Just have a lot of soft tires ready to go. Don't last long in qualifying.
Just burn them. Burn them on a car with yet another inexplicable alternate livery that's only slightly different from the regular one.
One more thing about the Spanish Grand Prix is all season long, Christian Horner and his ilk over there at Red Bull have been saying, just wait till Spain. McLaren's going to come back to the pack. They got to change their rear wing. They're going to come right back to the pack. You just wait. McLaren's coming back. I don't think McLaren's going anywhere, Nick.
It was closer, but Red Bull's also pulled off a couple of wins already at tracks that people didn't think they were going to win, Imola and Suzuka. Look, there's starting to be a gap forming between Max, because he's the only Red Bull driver at this point, and the McLaren drivers, which is not a surprise. But yeah, you're right. It was a victory for those who support McLaren and think that it wasn't just the flexi wing that was giving them the advantage. And turns out it wasn't just that. But also, as Lewis Hamilton said, this whole thing was a waste of money. It doesn't matter. The wing's still going to flex a little bit. We're just wasting our time. This should have been something that was addressed in the offseason. Mm-hmm. It's dumb. The whole thing's dumb and overblown. I have an extra note. Charles Leclerc slips into a podium. Look at that. Just kind of hanging back there in P4 and just restart on a safety car. I'll take P3. Why not? Sure. Congrats to you, Charles.
Charles takes P3 while Lewis Hamilton gets passed by Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
That was, I'm going to remember that video for the rest of my life, just watching that, tractor of a car beat Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari down a straight. That was just magical.
Dude, I feel for Lewis so bad right now.
Why?
Somebody asked him afterward, they were like, what did you learn from this weekend? He goes, absolutely nothing. He is so, and maybe this is predictable Like, we kind of should have seen this coming. He
I
is
think we
so
did see this
frustrated
coming.
with Ferrari.
I think we
Like,
did see this coming.
He hates his engineer. He hates the way they do their strategy. He hates the way they communicate. And he hates the car. It's a worse Mercedes from last year. Lewis, was this a calculated mistake? Or did you just walk into a bad situation that's only getting worse with each week? Because Charles is out there sneaking out podiums, and you, while you finish, still in the points, are clearly frustrated, and understandably so.
Lewis, just like other world champions before him, and Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, who got his first points of the year this weekend, congrats to his home race, they learned the hard way. The grass is not always greener in Italy.
Lessons learned from Daniel Ricciardo. Not Italy, but Renault.
And McLaren. Although
yeah,
that was
but
more
was
him
more
than
like,
McLaren, but
Yeah, it was more like I needed a drive.
Just going back to the other two races real quick, just a great win for Max in Imola. Did that, from 49 points down now. Yes, he has 2 wins, the same number as Lando Norris, but he has had mistakes and his team has made mistakes. Is Max still in the running?
Mathematically, yes, but they're gonna have to bring some upgrades, man. Like,
it just feels
else.
like I don't think they can be close, but they just can't get there.
They're a podium contender every week, pretty much every
Max
week.
is a podium contender every week.
Yeah, Max is. That's what I mean when I say they. Again, no offense to Yuki, but afterthought. But as the schedule unfolds, maybe we get a surprise in Canada. Maybe we get a rain race and everything, all hell breaks loose like last year. And we are going to hit the Red Bull Ring before long, too, which is a track that he knows quite well because that's considered one of Red Bull's home races. So maybe you get some excitement there, but I still think that, not to throw cold water on the fire that is the F1 season, but the closing of the gap that we hoped for, it's not consistent. It's just like a track-by-track situation in which, Max did really well at this track. Like, that race, that win he had in Imola was dominant. It was a hell of a performance. And frankly, the Spanish Grand Prix, we keep saying Spawn because we're going to Spanish Grand Prix, was a great drive, too, until the final 10 laps. So, he's always going to be in contention, but the car is just not as good as McLaren. Not to excuse away any of McLaren's success, but just to say that, he is fighting an uphill battle every week. So I fully expect Oscar to win the championship. And I don't even expect Lando to make it that interesting. And I think it's a McLaren 1-2 atop the standings, and Max is in third. And the gap that we see now is the gap that we see by the end of the season. Maybe double it, but not quite double it.
I think we are going to see a little bit more of a battle now between the McLarens, because during qualifying, Lando decided to slow down on an outlap and get a tow from Oscar for one of his qualifying runs. And you could hear Oscar's mechanic going, "Watch out for Lando getting a tow behind you," and then it was too late, and Lando goes sailing past him, and he gets provisional pole, and Oscar just goes, "Cheeky." That was his response, "Cheeky."
Yeah.
Gloves are coming off a little bit, because Lando realizes, all right, if I'm going to do this, I need to not play unfair, but at the same time, I'm going to need to look out for me. And I think he's going to start to do that a little bit more. I think both of them are going to start to do that a little bit more. And eventually, we are going to see them 1-2, like we did this week. And Lando isn't going to botch the start, or Oscar isn't going to. We're going to see Lando on pole, Oscar P2, and they're going to have a fight into the first corner or on the first lap. We're going to see that happen. Zach Brown and McLaren have made it clear. Their drivers are free to race. What that's going to look like, we don't necessarily know, because they haven't had the opportunity to race yet.
Yes.
But we have gotten, 9 races in. We've got another 15 races to go. The odds are these two cars are going to fight at some point.
And the beauty of that for Liberty Media, the primary owners of Formula One, is that it's so marketable. We could get a Rosberg-Hamilton situation, and we haven't had one of those in years.
Nick, it's possible that we have a 2021 situation in which we're going to Abu Dhabi with the title undecided.
Even if it's between two McLarens.
That's what I'm saying. Even if it's between two McLarens, I think that this is going to come down to the last few races, if not the last one of the season.
That would require Lando to drive better than he has, though. And I lack the confidence that Lando's going to do that. I know Oscar will. So it's going to be on Lando to make it interesting.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I know Oscar's going to, because he's shown that he can. Lando's got to step it up a notch. That's all it is. He's got to stop overdriving the car, and he's just got to trust himself a little bit more. I think with Lando, it is all kind of psychological right now. We'll see what he can do.
I don't have a lot of faith in him. I think
I know
he's
you
in a
don't.
good car, and I think he's a good driver, but Oscar's a great driver. And if I was a betting man, which I'm not, because I'm prohibited from betting on sports, my chips would be on Oscar Piastri. Don't you wink over there. I follow
Wink.
the rules.
Nick does follow the rules. Anything else to
I
add,
like
Vic?
My job. I like being employed. No, not really. I'm running through the race in my head right now, and I think one of the most fascinating things that we've seen this season is how George Russell just ends up in the top 5 every week, even when he doesn't deserve it.
He really is. If the most outstanding driver of the season wasn't already Oscar Piastri, it would be George Russell, because he's just...
Which just is gross.
Yeah. Let me ask you one more thing, too, because a troubling trend has been popping up. We have seen the Aston Martins have problems with their power units, which is a Mercedes power unit. We've had Mercedes have problems with their power units and the electronics on their car. Remember when they couldn't find the Mercedes on the timing charts or on the track at all because...
That was a weird week.
Yeah, the electronics just weren't working. And then this week in Spain, Kimi Antonelli's power unit just dies, and that's what brings out that safety car later on in the race. Should McLaren be worried? They're a Mercedes power unit. Could that be the great equalizer where we start to see problems? Haven't seen anything yet from McLaren. They have been a well-oiled machine. But Mercedes has had problems. Aston Martin has had problems. Are the cars in papaya the next ones?
I'm going to speak for the agent of chaos who is not with us tonight, Katie Caldwell, and I'm going to hope that they do. Just because the chaos that would ensue would be so delicious for those who are tuning into F1 races every Sunday. I wouldn't have a huge worry because they're a customer, and you go through, quality control and everything and testing, and their car is so good that I just don't think about it as being a possibility right now. But God, I would love it if they did. Not because of Max, just because it would make everything so much more fascinating. Aston Martin, I'm not surprised because their car has been pretty bad. Fernando Alonso has complained about it on multiple occasions. In fact, he's had races where he's been in great spots to move up in the field, and something, whether it's strategy or just a lack of, proficiency on the part of the car, holds him back, and he's voiced his frustrations over the team radio. But the way I look at McLaren right now is I look at them like I did Mercedes in 2020, which is they're just going to be good every week. They're the team you're chasing. So until it happens, I won't expect them to. But God, I would love that if they did.
I will say this, though. Prior to the season, my big prediction was that the racing would be so tight between these top teams that only 5 wins would get you the world championship. I think Oscar Piastri is going to get a lot more than 5 wins.
Yep.
But he does now have 5 wins, and he is your world championship leader, so...
What if this was his last win? What if we look back on this podcast months from now and I'm neck deep in the NFL season?
Did I just jinx him, Nick?
Oh, my God. I kind of hope you did. No shade on Oscar at all. That would be so compelling to watch him suddenly hit a patch where he can't get a win. And where Lando gets a win. And Max gets a win. And
it's okay.
A random
Nick,
George Russell win.
You want Lando to win the championship. It's okay.
I don't.
It's okay, man. You can say that.
I want intrigue. I want intrigue and entertainment, baby. That's what I'm here for.
All of a sudden, Ferrari's going to have a rocket ship.
I came to that realization, Sean. No, they'll never, because they can't get out of their own damn way. I came to the realization, I am a Red Bull fan, but I enjoy F1 for the race, not for the teams.
And I think we're getting good races now.
Yeah, which is cool. It's a refreshing revelation. You watch football for your favorite team, right? But F1, I'm just God, I just love there's battles in the back of the field where I'm oh, it's tight, it's close. It's when I watched that one race on silent, no commentary, and I was this is great. That's the beauty of the sport. You don't have to have a team. You can have a team. You can have a team and just enjoy the whole race. I'm enjoying the whole race right now.
Nick's enjoying the whole race, and we thank you for enjoying your time, evening, day, whatever it is, with the Gridiron Podcast. This has been episode 72 of the Gridiron Podcast. We'll be back next week to preview the Canadian Grand Prix up in Montreal, and as well talk about a little NFL minicamp starting up. I'm sure Nick will have a lot of notes to talk about that. So, for Nick Shook and the absent Katie Caldwell, I am Sean Barie. As always, live life in the fast lane.
Shortest episode in history? Perhaps. We'll never tell.
Good night, Canada.
Good night, Katie.